In today's episode, I'll be interviewing Clayton Barton from howtodrawcomics.net, and we're going to ask him about the benefits of the site that he's created, the Facebook group, also the comic book projects he's working on. He's an insanely talented artist, and he's going to share some insights with you that can help you, hopefully, on your journey to progressing your art and seeing in a bit of a retrospective way some of the things that you might face and how to get past those. So without further ado, let's jump into the interview. Hey, welcome back, everyone. Rob here from Ram Studio Comics. So in today's episode, we have special guest Clayton Barton with us, and he is the creator of howtodrawcomics.net and also the illustrator for Cozo, Descent into Madness. Yes, I did have to look down at my notes, even though I'm a backer, by the way.
Hey, you pronounced it pretty well, though, that time.
Thank goodness. All right. So, Clayton, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, totally. So my name's Clayton Barton. I am the creator of howtodrawcomics.net, as Robert Marzullo has already said. And man, I think there's such a long history behind howtodrawcomics.net, and it's been about 8 years or so. I think it's been a long time in the making. But what got me into howtodrawcomics.net? Why did I decide to create it? Man, I think that for me, comic books were always a passion, but never something that could realistically work as a living very easily.
Definitely.
That's always kind of been the state of affairs as far as the comic book industry is concerned. Like, some people get in, most people don't.
Yeah.
And up until now, there hasn't really been a huge range of opportunity with it. Of course,
when you originally started it, right? When you originally created it, what your main goal? I mean, obviously it's in the title, how to teach people to get better at it. But your main goal, was it to facilitate aspiring artists to get into comics and yourself? I mean, at the time, were you already creating comics, or were you just like, look, I want to help people to get better that aren't as good as me, that I can help get better? Like, what was your main goal?
Man, it's really cool actually thinking back to this, because here's the truth. I really love comic books. I knew, and comic book art, I knew that I had to get better. And I knew that one of the best ways of doing that was actually teaching other people how to do it. Because, you formulate your skills, your techniques, your methods, and you got to do it in a way where other people are going to be able to take on what you're saying and apply it for themselves. And I'd actually been doing that in the classroom at various states and universities around Melbourne.
You're already teaching.
I was already teaching, yeah, because I was actually teaching in a video games course at the time, but my heart was definitely set on comic book illustration.
Right.
I'd been torn for a little while, but I ultimately made the decision to focus solely on developing my comic book art skills, because I figured even if I wanted to get into video games seriously, which I did, I worked in the video game industry for some time.
Oh, you did?
A bunch of different projects.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I worked on the remastered version of Zelda.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, one of the Zeldas anyway. I forget what one it was exactly. Right. See, I never played the game. I was never a huge fan.
What?
But
yeah, I played Zelda. Well, the old Zelda, but still, yeah. Cool, man.
That was really cool. Great bunch of people I worked with at that studio. And it was amazing. But comic books are what I did when I went home. Yeah. Whether I was going home from teaching or sitting in the video game studio, it was always comic books in between that stuff. And the thing is that I knew that the more I developed my comic book art skills, the more those skills would funnel down into everything else that I was doing. So in the games courses, I was actually teaching the visual side of video games. So 3D modeling, for example, well, what does that require? Ultimately, that requires a good knowledge in anatomy, an understanding of form and how that all works. You've got to understand the proportions of characters. And so all of that knowledge that I'd gained in my pursuit of being a comic book art master that applied to all of that stuff, and it was
Right.
really great. I actually took to that, like 3D modeling, really quickly. Level design, concept design, visual, digital illustration, all of that stuff. So that was really great. But then I was like, well, you know what? I've got all this knowledge on how to draw comic books. I teach it in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
What if I decided to take it online? And so I started doing some YouTube tutorials because I was learning a lot of stuff from YouTube myself. From
Same here.
you yourself, you were around at the time. You were around before How
Oh,
to Draw Comics. Actually, you were one of the first channels out there teaching
yeah. See,
comic
I didn't know that.
illustration.
You just shared that with me, and I wasn't aware of that. So that's pretty
Yeah,
wild.
I'm pretty sure that was the
It
case.
makes me feel old, that I was around before. Because I thought it's been around for a long time, and I was like happy to become a member of it. One of the things I like about How to Draw Comics, like your Facebook group, and obviously the
Mhm.
content on the site, the parent site. But what I love about the Facebook group personally is the interactivity of sharing it and getting the feedback from. I mean, you've got some really amazing artists like yourself on there, and then some that are just look like some of the old pros are part of it, and a lot of the newcomers, a lot of the
Mm.
aspiring ones. And yeah, and I never take anything off the table. Like if it's somebody that's maybe he's not as polished or whatever, but they give me some good insight, I'm listening. That's how we all grow. I feel like anybody can be a critic sometimes. They gotta say it with like, so coming from a place of wanting to be helpful and having a good eye for something. When it's a bad critique or a good one. But your Facebook group is awesome for that. I mean, getting that real feedback from other artists. I mean, I know you can get in other places, but I find that to be one of my go-to places. And you made that. That's your baby.
Yeah, dude, it is pretty crazy how fast the How to Draw Comics group began to grow. But I think what was the most interesting is the kind of environment that was established within it. That you
Right.
could think of it as the culture of the group, which
Yeah.
I always knew was very, very important because you can direct that in any number of different ways. There's communities out there that are negative. There's communities that are
Mm-hmm.
positive. There's communities that are somewhere in between. You get some art communities which are like, really hard on artists.
Oh yeah.
And they're like, hey, look, if you want a critique, you're going to get a critique. And they give it to you like super brutally.
Yeah. No kid
But
gloves.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I never really wanted that for How to Draw Comics. And so what I would do, especially with the first members that started coming into the group, is I would comment on the posts myself in the group and try to set an example for the kind of interactions that should be expected to have happen within
Gotcha.
that community.
Yeah.
And
Model by example kind of thing.
pretty much,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think it really did work because in general, despite the size of our group, yeah, we get spammers. Yes, we get, lots of different types of personalities, some that
Mm-hmm.
simply conflict heavily with other members within the group, and
Right.
they're not quite going to fit in. They don't really want to be there. They're not enjoying
Right.
their time there. So,
Yeah.
sometimes, unfortunately, we've got to part ways with them. But in general, that group really gets along very, very well. They're so kind to one another. They give each other the feedback they require to up their skill set,
Yeah.
and it's just an amazing place to promote your art, to learn how to get better, and to really make some friends, some like-minded friends who are doing the exact same thing that you're doing. They're on the same path. And that's so important, man, because as artists, as comic book artists especially, it can feel kind of isolating doing what we do. It's not like
Yeah.
our buddies do comic book art. My
Exactly.
mate is like a gym junkie who is in IT, right? So about as opposite from me as you could get.
Right. Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, like any other business, it's all about who you know. You're gonna
Yeah.
make some good connects in there. I mean, and that's part of the art game. Even though a lot of comic artists, I think they kind of throw that out the window a little bit. Like, I work in my basement, my studio. I don't really got to make connections like some business person. No, you do. It's all about connections, and so places like
Mm.
that automatically facilitate that, which is very important. So I'm going to bring up your work too, and I just wanted to say, if there's anything that you want to mention about it, like the process and how you got to your level of detail. In fact, let me do that now. Let me share some of your work.
So this is actually a recent piece that I did for a comic book called Graveyard Shift. And
yeah, it's awesome, man.
Just an absolute honor to be able to contribute to it. Man, I did this piece in probably, I had a month to do it. It was a bit broken up, but I would say if I combined all the time together, it was about a week, a solid week. And that's kind of after hours too, going back to work after 9 p.m. and working till 2 a.m. some nights. But yeah, dude, I really enjoyed putting this piece together. And I really, when you're a comic book artist on the path to mastery, it's really a journey of getting to know who you are, getting to know how you want your work to look, how you make it happen. And that can be tough, man, because there's tutorials and stuff out there that can help you out for sure. There's people you can ask, comic art friends like yourself, Rob, who I can ask. But at the end of the day, there's a certain part of the journey that I've got to make for myself, and it is a journey of discovery of what works and what doesn't work, what I like and what I don't like within my own art.
Definitely. Now, with this piece, I love them all. This one, I really love the action and the drama to it. You got a lot of that going on, a lot of great textures. You don't slouch on the detail, which I absolutely love about it. And the foreshortening, everything, it's coming right at you, very dynamic. I got to ask, who are some of your influences?
Oh man, you could probably just look at this piece and tell who my influences are for sure. So Mark Silvestri is a big one.
Definitely.
So my first influence probably overall was Todd McFarlane and also Greg Capullo and the work on Spawn that they did together.
Right.
That was the influences I had in my early teens that just compelled me to pursue this line of passion, because man, how could you not want to recreate that stuff? It was so awesome, and it's contagious, man. You look at that kind of work and you want to be able to create it for yourself. And I feel so happy, so overjoyed that now I'm able to do that. I'm able to create the kind of work that I looked up to, that I aspired to create, due to the influences I had back then. And so yeah, it was Greg Capullo and Todd McFarlane, and then it transitioned into David Finch, who I studied for a very long time. And I learned a ton from him. He had a series of Gnomon courses that I watched a ridiculous amount of times, and I would sketch down everything that he was talking about, like an obsessed madman.
Yeah.
And I'd be doing figure drawing poses on the train to work. I'd be filling up the sketchbook with that. Just whenever I could get a spare second to practice, that was a time in my life where I was super obsessed with this stuff, and it was the groundwork, man. That was the foundations to which all of this stuff is built on now. And now I'm at a place where I'm focused on the higher tier aspects of my art. So the composition, the lighting, the contrast, the value, how it all reads together.
Right. Yeah, great job on the faces on this one. I'm really digging the faces. And I think in this one, I can really see more of some of your David Finch influences for sure.
For sure. It's kind of like, I would describe my style as a blend between David Finch and Mark Silvestri primarily. Right. Yeah. There's a little bit of Michael Turner and Scott Campbell, J. Scott Campbell, Jim Lee, all of those that played a part, but definitely David Finch and Mark Silvestri are my favorites.
Yeah, it's awesome. Lots of great texture in there. Loving it. Seeing here a big difference, where someone here, I think, could really have a field day with color work. I mean, either or, but this one, it's like with all the ink, you've really taken control. It's a lot of hard lines, really strong visuals, and here it's like, man, that'd just be fun to color.
Totally, man.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I've got two different styles really when it comes to my comic book art. I got this more clean cut Michael Turner style, which
Right.
is a little bit, I guess you could say, almost cartoony looking. It's actually the same style, just without all the shadows and the
Oh yeah.
rendering.
Yeah.
And some people actually prefer that. A lot of ladies prefer this, right? Whenever I show my partner my artwork, she always prefers it at this stage to this
Gotcha.
level of detail because and in a sense, I think that I can understand that. There is I think she herself described it. There's a bit more of a feminine aspect. I know it sounds weird to this particular style, and
No,
then
no, I can see what she means by that for sure.
the heavily detailed one, the dramatic stuff, that dirty rendering is a little bit more masculine.
Right, right.
But I
Yeah,
don't know,
and
man,
it's just
if there's anything to that.
different flavors, like I'm more
Yeah.
into the darker rendering, but I do the same thing. I practice with a very light rendering style at times. What I do like about light rendering styles is generally you have to be a little bit more aware of your forms. Uh,
Mm.
you can't cover them up with rendering. They got to work in their basic, simplest cartoon form. So I do like that about it. But I'm like you. It's probably because of the era that we got attached to comics, and we came in. Well, I'm a little bit older than you, I'm sure, but I came in when we mentioned a lot of the same names though, like Todd McFarlane, Silvestri, and then later on David Finch, but the real gritty um, amounts of dark detail, a lot of it, a
Mm.
lot of cool rendering. Um, but then, yeah, you look at something like this, it does make you think a little more of like a J. Scott style,
Mm.
Campbell. But yeah, to me, like I said a moment ago, to me, it's like, man, that just looks like it'd be fun to color because then what happens is it lets the colorist really kind of do a lot more, I think. You can still
Yeah,
color the other stuff just as well, but this stuff, they really get to take control of it and add their flair to it. Yeah,
that's
here's another one.
interesting,
See,
man.
now this one really reminds me of a J. Scott kind of thing,
Yeah.
but with some very powerful, like anatomy as well. Like I think he doesn't really add the strong anatomy as much as like he did here, but he uses a lot more soft curves throughout. But yeah,
Yeah, for
the
sure.
stuff's looking great, man. And I've
Thank
seen you
you, man.
come a long. Yeah, I've seen you come a long ways. Like it's not that your old stuff didn't look great. I remember for a while there we had powwowed back and forth to the internet, and I hadn't met you. It was just like we were talking about different stuff and tutorials and things like that. But I think your work now versus back then, which I don't know if that was 5, 6, 7 years ago, or 6, I don't know, but
Yeah.
you grew a lot, which is awesome. That's what we all want to see, in our own work and in others. Now, this is the book, right? Kozor?
Yeah, this is an interior page from Cozo, Descent
Very
into
nice.
Madness. And this is a special project, right? Like mostly I want to talk about how to draw comics today, but this is still a very significant point at which I'm at with, I guess you could say, my journey, my
Hmm.
career.
Yeah.
My brother and I, Corey, the Barton
The,
Bros, we
the Barton
decided.
Bros. Gotta love it. The Barton Bros.
Yeah, we decided to work on this comic book, Cozo, and it's actually originally it's his book. He actually illustrated it and wrote it, but it was a long time ago. It was about 5 years ago, and he's come a long way since then. But it was a
Yeah.
great story, and we wanted to publish it, but he didn't feel comfortable publishing it at the level that it was at back then. So I said, "Hey, man, what if I come in and I initially said I'll touch up the pages, but I ended up redrawing a lot of the pages completely, inking them, recoloring them, everything. And so there's like these two different versions of the book, which are available in the campaign. You can get both versions, so you can see what it used to look like. You can see what it looks like now, and the hard work we put in.
Oh, cool. Yeah, yeah. By the way, I'll link to the campaign in the description box below, as well as howtodrawcomics.net. All that good stuff. All Clayton's links will be down there. Please support it. Yeah, you'll go there and check out the campaign, and it's just gorgeous stuff, obviously. So, yeah, go
Thanks,
ahead,
man.
Clayton. Yep.
I really appreciate that. And Yeah, me and my bro, we're working on this, and it's one of the coolest collaborations ever. Cause so right now I'm predominantly on line art, doing up these pages. He's on the colors, and it is looking really, really fantastic. We're super proud of it, and we can't wait to actually print it and hold it in our hands. We feel like it's
Definitely.
going to be very rewarding to do that.
Awesome, man. Can't wait. Yeah, I'm a backer, so I can't wait to get my order or whatever, get my fulfillment.
Totally. Hey, you know
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Let me share something with you because it
Yeah, go
kind of
ahead.
relates to the simple style and what you were saying
Definitely.
about the aspects of coloring
Yeah.
and the more complex versions.
And I gotta ask, man, because I've seen you I think work on this stuff using an Intuos, right? What do you
Yeah,
use?
yeah, man. I use this Intuos 3.
Okay, I'm glad because I get so many people on the channel that are like, you got to have the iPad, you got to have the Cintiq, and yeah, look at that,
It's an
dude.
old
That's
one, man.
that's no, that's
Like
awesome because I just want people to see. I can't tell you how many times I've talked about this on the channel, and I've mentioned to people in comments saying, well, you don't really have to have the fancy drawing devices because like, oh, I can't afford an iPad or wake, and I totally get it. Those things are expensive. That Intuos 3, I mean, you probably pick those up for maybe 100, probably not even that, right?
I
To
think
get
they were 300 back in the
at the
day, but
time, yeah, but now
I
I'm
got these
saying,
for free, man, because I actually, you know how movie actors sometimes steal props from the sets of the movies they're
I
working
don't
on?
I don't want to hear this story, Clayton. If it's going to
Well,
incriminate me in any way, I
oh
don't
no,
want
no, not at all, not at all.
all right.
But I'll just say that the universities they don't really miss this stuff,
Oh
and
goodness.
you eventually leave and you're like, oh shit, I forgot to return that. A lot of the courses shut down and closed up, so
Yeah,
they never really gave me the opportunity to return it.
gotcha. Yeah, I would say that's my tax dollars, dude, but I'm in America, so no, it's not my tax dollars. That's in
Oh yeah,
Australia. So
yeah,
we're
yeah.
good. No, no, that's totally cool. Like, but I want people to really think about that. Like, you're doing some high level pro grade work that most people think you're using a crow quill on a brush, and I just got to say that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm a big fan of using whatever you can get your hands on, but I'll hear a lot of people say, "Well, those tablets, you can't get that tight line work, and it's all right
Mm.
here. You're doing clean work. You're doing tons of cross hatching."
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have thought that you were doing it within a 203. So, anyways, I just wanted to make that point. I think that's pretty cool for a lot of people that are worried about, well, I can't, afford the nicer, higher end devices. I got a buddy, Chris Scalf, that does some beautiful digital paint work. I got him linked on the channel under the featured channels list, and he does these amazing, hyper realistic paintings. Same device you use, same tablets. He
Yeah,
prefers it
man.
that way. He's like, he sits back in his chair. He's like leaned way on back. He's kind of holding it like a sketch
That's
pad.
awesome.
Yeah, he'll put it up on a big screen. Like, do you ever do that? You ever put your work on a big screen and draw it?
Um, no, no, I don't have a big screen that I am able to do
Or
that with. But
your TV or something. If you ever get bored, it's pretty
yeah,
cool.
yeah, for sure. I think you know, I'm a real weird dude, man. Once I find a way of doing things, I'm really reluctant to
No,
try anything different.
that's smart. That's not weird. That's smart, folks, because I bebop around like I'm gonna draw upside down today. And like I do all kinds of weird stuff. I should be like, no, I'm gonna use the same setup every time. No, I bounce around. Then I'm wondering why I'm getting different results.
You know what's funny though, man, is I end up like my artwork, as you said, it keeps on changing for some reason. Like it constantly grows, even though I'm doing things. I think it's my influences. Right now, I'm really looking at some of the old stuff from Conan Savage Sword, the Alfredo Alcala work over
Oh
the
wow.
top of John Buscema, which was just, man, I look at that and I'm like, oh, wow. I mean,
Yeah, I gotta take a note of that one.
how is that even possible? Yeah, Alfredo Alcala over John Buscema. Alfredo Alcala also did a book back in the day, which will just blow your mind, called Voltar, Voltar. And man, I look at that and I'm just like, wow, that's like wizard level stuff,
Right.
you know.
And that's
So I've been
what we need to take in, right? We need to see that, and then all of a sudden it opens our mind up a little bit. Like, man, maybe I could do a little piece of that into my puzzle, but yeah, but maybe
totally.
not. Like it's really breathtaking stuff, and it's good to see that whole nother level so that we can realize how far we really still have to go, to
Heck
get to
yeah.
where we want to be. Yeah. Oh, go
So
ahead.
I've shared that screen with you.
Oh yeah, yeah.
If
Bring
you want
that
to
up.
check it out, because I'd love to get your opinion on this. We're still deciding which one to go with. In fact,
Gotcha.
now you probably already know my preference, but in your opinion, as a peer, a fellow peer, what's your preference and why? What do you think?
I
What
mean,
works
I
best?
yeah, I'm probably gonna go against what you're gonna say, I guess, but
Yeah,
because I know you like the heavier rendering, and I do love the heavy rendering on this, but I would go with the first one because to
yeah,
me, when you're looking at it from a distance like this, that heavy rendering gives it a really nice composition and it encapsulates the figure. It draws you right into her first, then your eye works out. Where in the third one, even the second I don't like the mid rendering as much
mm,
just because it's when I see how clean she looks. All right, like with female figures, I tend to render less, okay, on
yeah,
the female figure itself, where it's either all or nothing. So I wouldn't sit on the fence with the middle one. I'd either go for it or I wouldn't,
mm, for
And to
sure.
me, the composition reads cleaner on the first, even though I really like that chromy kind of look you gave to the skin. It almost looks like
Mm,
her skin's wet with that rendering style you chose. But
yeah,
again, to me, it gets her legs or midsection gets a little lost,
yeah,
mainly the legs. So or leg, I should say. The other one's coming
mm,
down. No, the other one's coming down at the bottom. Yeah, the first one just reads more clean, and then it
yeah.
makes that contrast between her being clean and that gargoyle monstrous thing looking monstrous. That works. So I'd go with that.
Nice, dude.
Sorry,
That's awesome.
sorry, that was a
It's
long
funny.
answer.
It's funny because a lot of people I've showed this to have said the exact same thing.
Oh,
In
good.
fact, the client he went for that one too, and I'm like,
Okay.
damn,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and
So
it was neat. We just had David Finch on the channel for our art review video, right? And so
yeah,
we're looking at people's art, we're reviewing it. And one of the neat things was when people would give us their shared screen and we look at the art, it'd be real small at first, right? And there was one of them in particular, he said, and I agreed because it was totally what I was thinking. The guy's like, "Oh, let me zoom in so you can see it better." And he's like, "I can already tell it's a good page." And I thought that was
cool.
just a really key point because you see them smaller and they read well, they make sense.
Mm,
That's a winner. You want to really get used to looking at the art from way back, and yeah, the composition works, the shapes work, and then you zoom in, and yeah, it's not always that every line will look clean when you get up close, but it needs to work from a distance. And I'm looking
yeah.
at yours from a distance because they're all lined up side by side, and yeah, it really does make sense. So yeah, for other artists out there looking to improve, make sure you step back from your work and look at it small. You'll thank yourself. You don't want to put too much time and effort into it, and then you realize it all blends
Mhm.
together.
That's exactly it, man.
you
That's
know,
exactly it. So that's really good input. That's really good input from you. I appreciate it because you know what you're talking about when it comes to this stuff too.
I like to think so.
All right,
I
I'll
like, I
take.
like to pretend. No, that looks great, bro.
Thanks,
So
man.
now that's a cover for a different book. What is that for?
So this is actually for a comic book called Graveyard Shift 3 by John Malin. And yeah, it was really great to be able to have the opportunity to work on to contribute to this project in some
Right.
way. This is
Yeah.
actually a pin up for a book that they're including with that main campaign, which essentially follows this theme. It's like a swimsuit bikini version of the character in a
Yeah.
bunch of these different situations. One's at a party, one's you know, what are the other ones that are there? Yeah, there's a bunch of different versions. Basically, he's leaving it up to the artist to, include her in whatever scenario they want.
That's
And so
cool.
this is the one I decided to choose. I thought it would be pretty awesome. She's supposed to be a vampire chick, so I thought, we'll have her fighting a werewolf gargoyle creature, And you know, the thing is, the reason I like the third one so much is because I thought that suited the mood of what I was going for a little bit more.
Gotcha.
You know, it was kind of a nighttime environment, so you're going to get those darker shadows happening, but
Right.
also there's a bit more of this gothic vibe to it. But anyway, yeah. So really great opportunity to connect with John. We're already good buddies, and he really helped us out with Cozo by helping to promote it on our launch day and stuff. So
Gotcha.
yeah, absolutely good stuff.
Very cool. Yeah. So if you could go back and talk to the young version of you, right, and you could say, "Look, here's some tips for an aspiring young comic artist." What tips would you give them?
Hmm. Well, the first thing I would say is you can get as good as you want to get. Like imagine the kind of art you want to you dream of doing. You can get to that point, but you're going to have to put in the work required to deserve that level of ability, right?
Gotcha.
And so that's a long road, you know.
Hmm.
And how much does it mean to you? Does it mean 8 years of hard work every single day? Does it mean that much to you? Because if it doesn't, then you're probably going to give up halfway through and not actually reach that level, right?
Right.
So there's got to be a certain level of curiosity about the point to which you can get to. Like, I think it's believing that you can get there is the first step,
Right.
and then actually finding some level of joy in the journey. You know,
Hmm.
it's like for me, I view it as a video game. You know, what boss am I going to come up against next that I'm going to have to overcome in order to get to the next level? Like
Right.
that's how I view it, right? And a video game, if it was easy, wouldn't be fun. You know, it's got to be a little bit challenging, and that's why I honestly believe I'm still so hooked on the comic book art form till this day, because
Right.
every single piece that we just went through there had its own challenges, and you know, it keeps me on my toes.
Definitely.
It's awesome, man. Like I'm never 100% satisfied with anything until it's as done as I can possibly get it.
Right.
But yeah, as I said, if you know, I digress. I digress. If I could tell, yeah, my younger self, I would remind him of that. It's a view that I always had. But I used to watch a lot of motivational videos too. You know, I always had
Hmm.
this growth mindset. You know,
Right.
think what you want of Tony Robbins, but he definitely was a big motivator for me. A guy called Earl Nightingale. He had this video back in the day. Uh, you know, it's a pretty damn old video. I think it used to be on cassette actually, and it was called "The Incredible Secret" or something like that.
Right.
And you can probably look it up on YouTube. Earl Nightingale, the Incredible Secret, I believe it was called,
Okay.
along those lines. And the video basically talked about how you know, most people will go to work and do the everyday, you know, 9 to 5, come home to their family tired,
Hmm.
waste their time the rest of the day watching TV and whatever, go to sleep and do the same thing the next day. It also discussed how, you know, as kids we tend to follow other people and do what they do. You know,
Right.
so if
Model
one
them.
person ends up getting into you know, it could be IT, like I said, for example, then we'll probably end up getting into IT as well. Like if we have a, you know, a bunch of friends that are overweight and unhealthy, we'll probably be overweight and unhealthy as well.
Right.
Or likewise, if we have a bunch of friends that hit the gym, then probably we'll hit the gym with them and be inspired to do that, right?
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
So he basically said, well, he just reminded me of the amount of time I've got in my life to set out and accomplish all the things that I want to accomplish, and to
Hmm.
not waste any of it, to think for myself and to achieve my dreams, which
Gotcha.
I think there's no other way to live, man.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, for just to cap, like you you got to totally believe you're in it to win it. You believe in yourself, and then you got to be aware that there is a huge amount of time dedication. And I think that every artist, has to come to grips with that. Like they start drawing, and they're like, I'm getting better, but like, what do you hear a lot of? Like, I'm not getting better fast enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not drawing enough probably as part of it, and you're being a bit impatient with yourself, which is a big no-no because it's
Mm.
going to take you a long time. There's a reason they call it art journey. So coming to grips with the fact that it is going to take an absorbent amount of time. Now, some people are savants and they make some broad jumps, and that's great, but you can't count on that. You know what I mean? It's like buying a stock and be like, man, I bet in 5 years this thing's going to be the next AOL or Amazon. You don't think like that. You got to look at the long game. And I think comics and hard work, any job that is hard work, you have to come to grips with that in
Mm.
yourself and say, am I really cut out for that? Now, if you are and you're being honest with yourself, then cool. Now you just put in the time. You do it for that long haul. Because it is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I felt like. It's like people go, "Oh, Rob, you draw pretty good," and I'm like, thanks. And all I'm thinking is, you don't know how hard I worked at this. And so then a younger cat will come in and be like, hey, how do I get fast? How do I do this? How do I get, better? And I'm like, you draw for 10 hours a day. And when you can once in a while, try to hit 14, because if you're going to work for somebody, that might get thrown on your lap. And if actually, in fact, it's probably going to get thrown on your lap. And if you can't do that, then you don't really want to be raising your hand saying, yeah, I want that job. You might not be ready for that, right?
Yeah, totally. And it shouldn't even be a question of whether or not you're prepared to put in that work and put in the time. Like it should really be an obsession. That's how you know whether or not you're going to succeed. I remember I actually got this quote printed on a mug of mine, right? Like how how vain am I? I print my own quotes on mugs. But it was
Mugs are cool.
talent is merely the motivation to get better at that which you're most passionate about. That's really
Right.
what talent is. And so
Right.
it's determined by your level of motivation. If you're not
Yeah.
motivated, then you're not going to get anywhere. Like
Right.
and it's got to be, you got to be hungry for it. Like you've
Hmm.
got to think about it before you go to bed at night. Wake up and be thinking about it still, be dreaming about it. And it really will pay off. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
It will 100%. All that work and whatever level of investment you're putting in, the rule of life is you reap what you sow.
Right.
That's
Very true.
100% true. And I'm sure
Yeah.
you've found that as well with yourself, Rob. Like, you're just like me, man. You practice every single day. You get to draw every single day, I'm guessing.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
That's all I do. The
yeah.
only difference is every now and then I hit record on something and I edit video. Well, there's a lot of time spent editing videos and doing all that not so fun stuff. But I was able to combine drawing with video and make a lifestyle choice, a living, so that I could pursue comics without feeling worrisome. Because for me, I had a business and I couldn't that business was my mainstay, and I couldn't shut it down to start drawing comics because I just decided, like, man, I really missed it. I should have been doing comics. So I got into that work habit, and then that became
Mm.
my main income, and I couldn't just stop. But luckily, because of YouTube and because of some of the success I was seeing, I was able to make that jump and say, you know what? No, I know I'm coming up on 40, but I need to, I'm 45 now, but I was saying I was coming up on 40. I need to go for it. And I shut my business down, pursued the YouTube channel, started drawing doing art videos, and luckily it all worked out. But like you were saying with the passion aspect of it, the thing that really gave me the faith in it, I thought I was pretty good at drawing, definitely needed to be better, still need to be better. But the thing that gave me the faith is that I knew that I have that passion. And to me,
Yeah.
that burning like little kindle of fire inside me to always do that thing is bankable. Like I can invest in that because I know that no matter how much I get tired and sick of what I'm doing, uh, the other things that are required to
Mm.
be an artist or whatever, is I'm always going to love drawing comics. Well, to me, that's what you should invest in yourself, because if you're always motivated to do that thing, then you're never going to run out of energy to do it. You can't say that about a lot of jobs and careers. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to get burnt out.
Mm.
You're going to get people that you don't like to work with. Things are going to happen.
Yeah.
But if you're passionate about something you're doing, that's always going to keep you through those bad spots, because you're going to have those dips.
For sure, man. It keeps you, man. It replenishes your spirit
Yeah.
in a way, whether you believe that literally or metaphorically. And I
Right.
truly do. That's how you find fulfillment in life,
Yeah.
honestly, because the rest of it outside your passion, a lot of it can be a drag, man.
Right.
And hey, here's the other silver lining at the end of all the hard work that you're going to put into becoming a badass artist is that when you do get to that level, you'll like the high levels, which you will get there if you put in
Yep.
the work. The work will start coming in. By the way,
Right.
you'll start getting asked to do commissions. You'll have
Yep.
more commissions probably than you can handle, and you'll have to say no to people.
Yep.
And that's so true. Like the entertainment industry has never been bigger than it is now, and it's changing constantly. And I think now we're seeing a lot of independent comic book creators start their own projects, and they're not necessarily illustrating their own books. They're actually hiring out other people from Facebook, from Twitter, from YouTube. And so a whole there's offshoots of these different industries starting to pop up outside the mainstream, which is just providing greater and greater opportunity to anyone who wants to anyone who wants to make a living being a comic book illustrator. They call it the gig economy, essentially.
Okay.
You've got things like Uber now. You've got things like we've got Airtasker here. I don't know if you guys have that in America, but it's basically just you can hire people to do odd jobs around your place, mow your lawn, put together your flatbed furniture, whatever.
Gotcha.
You've got things like Netflix. The whole world is changing thanks
Right.
to the level of technology we've got and connectivity we have. And that means that you as an artist, man, I mean, this is really one of the best possible paths you could go down, I believe. I truly do believe that.
Yeah.
It used to be that it was an unrealistic one. These
Definitely.
days, it's one of the most viable, for sure,
Yeah.
the way things are headed.
Yeah, and you, I think we already covered this, but I'll say it again, or talk about it again. You started howtodrawcomics.net how many years ago?
Man, about last time I checked, I think it was about 8. Wait a second. Yeah, so it would have been about 22, maybe 23, and I'm 31 now.
Okay.
So a while ago, yeah.
So I mean, and even though that's a good amount of time, I mean, it's grown to something that has become a really great community in so many ways, right? I mean,
Totally.
it's helped your business and helped tons of other people conduct business, grow business. I mean, not just become better artists, but also make connections. Because I always come back to when people look at art and they go, "Well, how do I be a comic artist? How do I survive?" It's like you kind of have to turn it into a business, right? You got to kind of have to treat it like a business, treat it
Yes.
like a career first, and then it'll become a career later. You can't do it the other way around. I mean, maybe you could, I don't know, but
Yeah.
you gotta learn some business skills. And but I think with what you did in a relatively short amount of time to amass it to the following it is, and I imagine your site, the net part, not just the Facebook group, that's doing equally as well, right? They're hand in
Yeah,
hand, right?
it's doing really good, man.
Yeah,
The honest truth is that I don't think I'm utilizing it to its fullest potential, honestly, because
right,
it's got a lot of traction, and my focus is really on the creation of comic books at this point in time.
right.
The site kind of runs itself at this point, which is really amazing, and it's growing on its own. It's its own thing. But I do wish that I could clone myself so that I could do what you're doing, which is smashing out those courses and really building up the library of howtodrawcomics.net. But it's difficult to do that and do actual comic books at the same time,
No,
which I'm
no,
sure you know.
dude, no, I'm to the point now where, like, I worked on the Blackstone comic today, and even though this is Clayton's interview, folks,
Oh
but
no,
but I did, I worked on that, and it's like, but yeah, I mean, when you're doing courses and doing comics, it's a lot of juggling, and you running the site and helping other people and fostering relationships with other young artists that are trying to come up. Clayton's also got a bunch of great artists on the parent site. Ed Foychuk, David Finch. We're both on there. Clayton's got some awesome course content. And so, yeah, I mean, when you're juggling, how much can you keep up in the air? You know what I mean? Before it all, so you got
yeah,
to pick and choose which ones are your focus.
you do.
But yeah, we want to make comics, right? So it's like we do this stuff, but then we got to sit back and we got to draw the page work. We got to make time for that. So
And going back to how to draw comics and how it began, the initial motivation was like, oh, what I'll do is I'll set up this business. I'll teach myself how to draw, teach others how to draw. I'll set up this business and I'll make it like a passive income stream, essentially.
right.
And then that'll allow me to fund my comic book creation endeavors.
Yeah. Nothing wrong
While
with
at the
that.
same time helping other people out.
Gotcha.
And it pretty much got to that point, which is really, really awesome. But at the
Yep.
same time, it's like, man, how to draw comics is just this special, beautiful thing that I've grown. And I hate not being able to spend more attention on it, to put my all into it. But you really do have to, choose ultimately what you're going to do. Like if you could do one thing, what would it be? And that's kind of heartbreaking to have to choose sometimes when you've got multiple things that you're passionate about. I've always had to
Definitely.
make those choices, man. Yeah, because I want to make movies. I want to create statues and action figures, but I'd have to live like multiple lifetimes to be able to do all of those things.
Yeah, I'm telling you. And time has a way of like kind of fleeting on you. So you have to really be aware of, time management. You gotta
Mhm.
be on that. And it's like, all right, the other thing I want to talk about real quick too was when we looked at your pieces of art, I know we kind of touched on this, but your speed, like what did some of those pieces take you? Do you remember certain ones
Mm.
taking considerably longer? Let me bring those back up.
So this one was quite a milestone for me because I actually started creating it on a stream that I was doing.
Gotcha.
And I don't normally draw on streams because I'm kind of, I'm insecure about that stuff. I get stage fright. I like to sit down and work it out in private when it
Right.
comes to creating my stuff. I
Yeah.
don't necessarily want to show all the errors and stuff unless I've got control over that. And
Yeah.
I never felt like I could do my best work while I was doing it live. But I started doing this up and I was working at a fairly good pace. And I got this done within like a few days. I got most of it done on that stream, in fact. And then I
Awesome.
started adding in some rendering here and there. And I was like, what the hell, man? Like, this is some of my best stuff. And I did
Man,
it in a fraction
do
of
you
the amount of time.
do you really need that many lines, Clayton?
I think I do.
All
I
right,
think I
because you're gonna get carpal tunnel, just so you
do.
know.
Like I said, it was a milestone. And from this point on, actually, I started speeding up considerably. And as I said, what
Gotcha.
would take me a month, and this would have taken me a month or more if, you know, back in the day.
Right.
But now it takes me about a week to pull out a good proper piece. If I'm working on it solidly for a week, I'm going to be able to turn it out. And the good thing about that is John Malin, who we spoke about before.
Right.
He said something that really hit a chord with me. He said, if you can do a page a week, you'll get a 50-page comic book done per year, and that's a good amount for an independent creator. And I thought, you know what? That's really awesome. I could do a page a week, and I
Yeah.
think that setting yourself manageable deadlines, a manageable schedule, but keeping it consistent. Consistency is the main key.
Right.
You can really get a book out in a small amount of time. And by the way, people who are crowdfunding their books right now, uh, they're earning enough on those individual books to fund them for a year. I mean, there was a guy. I mean, you just have to look on Indiegogo and Kickstarter to see some of
Right.
them, hundreds of thousands of dollars, some of them, and
Wow.
you got to build a network, you've got to build an audience, sure, but the great thing about it is all of that is in your control.
It is. It really is. And that's why I keep saying, like, to people, treat it like a business because those networks, those connections, sharing work all the time and building a following, even though, people like to make fun of it and say things like, oh, you're just chasing likes. No, I'm not chasing likes, chasing
Mm,
interactions and a network of people so that when I do make a product, it has a chance of success. It's marketing, basically. And as artists, we're uniquely poised for that because we make an image that elicits an emotional response, right? Hopefully, right? That
mm,
your key audience that loves your work, they look at this and they go, wow, that's cool. I love that. I want to color it. I just keep
Yeah.
saying I want to color it. But that's the thing. Like it elicits that response. And then you got a fan. And then when you go to make that next project on Indiegogo or whatever, you make a digital product on Gumroad, a PDF download, who knows? Boom, it has a following, it succeeds, no brainer.
Absolutely, man. That's so true. Yeah, it's been an awesome journey, man. Like, and I think you're 100% right about that too. It's not just about developing your artistic skills. You've got to develop a lot of other skills as well if you want to make your artwork as a business. Communication skills, especially. Like, there's so many. Look, the sad thing is I've hired people, and I know other creators who have hired people, and some artists just completely have the wrong attitude. They can be super entitled sometimes, unfortunately. And, sometimes that's completely justified. Sometimes the client, the dude hiring or the dudette hiring is, not exactly the most easiest person to get along with. And that's that's their fault. But definitely communication goes a really long way, even with people who, may not have the best attitudes.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like when you're easy to work with, that travels like anything else. So you got your talent, you got your ability to deliver on a deadline, and you got this ability to be liked, right? You're a good person. You're fun to work with. That goes a long ways. I mean, some people are going to ditch the one of the others for that likability factor. I don't want to be forced to work on a project with somebody that's not personable or just a joy to be around. Maybe not a joy to be around, but you know what I mean? Like not a pain to be around. So all those things factor into that. Are you the person that gets the call? But what is your what's your goals now for? You've got your book, and then you've got the site. What's your you got a 5-year plan, 10-year plan? What's your goals moving forward? More books, we hope.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely more books. I think about that a lot, actually, the timeline, the grand timeline. And I actually think I had it written down somewhere, what I wanted to do when I was 80,
Oh, nice.
And so I think, basically, I still want to do the how to draw comics stuff. Like I've been coming up with new models and formulas to do the lessons and the courses and stuff. And I want to put more of those out this year, actually. So, stay tuned for that. More tutorials are coming to the How to Draw Comics channel, even though I haven't put one out in a while. But I've got a script actually for a couple of them.
Good.
It's just a matter of compiling all that stuff and uploading it. But I want to do more How to Draw Comics stuff. However, my primary focus is starting to transition over into the comic books because, that's why I do what I do, man. That's been my dream since I was a kid. And I'd like to do that until really it becomes physically unviable for me to do it anymore. So I'm talking when I'm 60 and the arthritis is starting to set in.
That's not going to happen.
What's that?
You can be drawn to your 70, 80. You're fine. You're 30. You're 31. You're going to be 31. Dude, 31. You got plenty of time. Don't be thinking about retirement on us yet.
Hell no.
That's the beauty of being an artist. You can draw forever.
I thought about, hey, what would I do if like my hands can't hold a pencil anymore, or I don't have as much control? Maybe I'm getting the shakes or something.
Right.
But that's when I'll get into film, right? Because I would like to do movies one day. I really would. I think that'd be super cool. I'm a big film buff. I love watching them. I think actually, even though I hadn't practiced a whole lot of interior work in my time, when I do interiors, I have a little bit of a natural knack for them. Not to blow my own trumpet or anything, but I feel like it feels very, very natural for me. And I have a lot of fun, like setting up the camera angles, plotting out where the characters are going to be in the scene, and actually composing the panels.
Right.
Because I feel like the panel size and shape and positioning, that's all part of the experience for the reader too. And you can direct a lot about how the story feels based just on the composition of the panels alone. So
Well,
Man,
hey,
I love all that stuff.
yeah, and I mean, come on, let's look at like Robert Kirkman, right? Maybe you could take a page out of his books. Dude makes some amazing comics, and then what do? They go to Invincible, the animated series, The Walking Dead for like over a decade. There's some movie spin-offs coming to that. I mean, so like the options are limitless, but what's cool is they just started with good old comic books,
Hell
so
yeah,
I
man.
just think it's really neat and inspiring. So you could do that.
It's really, really awesome, man. And I definitely think, again, I'd love to do statues and that kind of thing. I think a lot of this stuff is going to be me uh, hiring people out, because and that's what
Yeah,
happened
of
with
course.
howtodrawcomics.net. After a while, I started hiring Joe Catapano for the tutorials. A lot of the tutorials
Yep.
are on.
He's been doing a great job.
He did an amazing job. He is unfortunately unable to keep going because he started doing a comic book of his own.
Yeah, it looks good. I seen a few. Well, I saw samples of it on I think your site or
Yeah,
your Facebook group. Yeah, good
totally.
for
And
him. Definitely.
it's amazing. But I think eventually I'll start hiring people to, really talented people who have already started hiring to do comic book projects for the Barton Bros Studios. So
Yeah.
we got an artist at the moment, Julius Gopez,
Oh, cool.
who we've got on a project called Borog, which is a spin-off of Cozo. And
Yep.
he's just an amazing artist, man. He's realizing this vision in a very beautiful way. His artwork really suits our very detailed, heavily rendered style.
Right.
And he's a pro. So I'd love to hire more talented people like that so that we can put out more comic books. And then maybe once we get that rolling, I'll do some other stuff. I'll venture into some other things.
Right. Yeah. See, and I envy you for that. Like you're smart enough to know that you should let other people do some of the work. Delegate. Because
Took me a
sometimes
long time to realize that.
Yeah, see, and I came from the other end where I had that business with employees and overhead and all this stuff, a brick and mortar shop, and I got away from that, and I was like, no, I'm just going to do it all on my own because I had issues there, but now it's like I'm on the other end going, man, how much can you do on your own? You know what I mean? Like if there's only so much you can do before you're not giving enough quality uh, focus on certain
Mm,
things. You know what I mean? They all start you start giving 10% here, 10% there when you could be
yeah,
doing, what I should be doing is 80% of my focus and my ability on comic making, or
yeah,
maybe 60/40 because I really like making my courses and stuff like that. But you know what I'm saying? There's only so much you can do. We only have so much time in
there
the
is.
day, and that's where delegating helps you to buy back your time and ultimately your sanity.
Yeah,
But
man.
no, it's good on you for doing that. It's not, and
Thanks.
it's not easy to delegate either. You gotta. It's a skill set
It,
all in itself.
it's really tough, man, because for starters, you've got to find someone who can do the work to a level that you are satisfied with, but at the
Mhm.
same time, they're not you.
Right.
So you don't have full control, right? Sometimes they might get halfway through a comic book project and just decide to bail. And there's not a lot you can do about that.
Yep.
So,
Happens all the time, right?
that stuff really can kick you in the gut, and it's
Yep.
horrible when it happens, but it's a risk you take. Sure, let me show you some of the layouts I'm doing for Borok. So I said I've hired Julius Gopez to actually do the final inks and stuff and draw
Right.
them up properly. But I'm actually still doing all the layouts because I'm a big control freak.
I know the
And
feeling.
again, man, it wasn't easy to start delegating and stuff.
Yeah.
But so and I don't know if this will help. I want to show it to you
Well, yeah,
because
for sure.
it might actually help you out just to see how I go about plotting out pages.
Oh yeah,
But
those are looking
basically,
killer, dude.
yeah, this is sort of how it all begins, man. And I realized that I don't know if you do a script for Blackstone, but
Yeah.
for me, I actually just started out all like this. I have a vague idea of what I'm going for in my head, and
Gotcha.
then I start drawing it. And the crazy thing is, the script writes itself. And I really it's like watching a movie come to life almost.
Right.
I start to feel where the story is going, and you would think that you'd run into some roadblocks, right? Like you'd just get stuck eventually.
Right.
But no, for me, when you're keeping it this simple, if you really do get stuck, you can take pages out, you can add them in. It's almost like when you see them putting together a movie and they've got all the scenes up on the pinboard, and
Yeah.
they're swapping them
Storyboards.
around, and
Yeah.
yeah. But this is
No,
very much the same process.
yeah, drawing loose and fast. I mean, these are definitely tight. They're not loose, but drawing loose and fast to get it all
Kind of.
down is definitely the way to go. I mean, I start with things that pretty much look like stick figures getting into a fight, and then but then as I level up on it, I had the forms and all that. But you generally know, yeah, like even that top left third panel,
Yeah.
just the composition there reads really good, really clean. It works, and yeah, I love that the layout of the characters. Sweet. So
Thanks,
yeah,
man.
I love the
Um,
faces. I like that dude on the lower right. Looks like kind of a Thor character. That's awesome.
yeah, I'm glad you like it. Well, I'll show you what the final pages look like as well. Why not? So, up here, if we take a look at this page with the warthog, he's riding
Yeah,
the
that's
giant
awesome.
warthog there.
Now, see, I saw that. Didn't you? You
Oh,
did you did a rendered version, or that was the one that other guy did for a cover, wasn't it?
yeah. So he actually Julius did the final rendered version of this. Uh,
Gotcha.
so he's
That's what I saw. Man, yeah, that's some tight work. So now you handed this off to him, and then he rendered over top.
Well, he actually redraws it from scratch, but
Okay.
he fixes any mistakes that I might have in there. But
Mhm.
he definitely redraws it and he re-renders it out, but he works off of those layouts because I have a solid idea of what I want, and I feel like another artist, they can end up interpreting what it is you're telling them in a script in written form in any number of different ways. And because I'm a
Yeah.
visual person, and I hate writing a script with words anyway, like I like to write the whole book. And there was another book that I did that I've already done the layouts for, called Renegade Alpha, which has been put on hold because of Borok. Like I got into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, over the course of a month, I did that thing, and it was like 60 pages. And
Wow.
it's all ready to go. I just need to hire someone to do it, or do it myself if I get the time.
Gotcha. Yeah. Good
Um,
luck
so
on that, man. It's looking sweet, bro. I can't wait to see these books.
thanks, man. I really do appreciate that. Um,
Definitely.
so yeah, lots planned, and going back to actually how you were saying about how my artwork has changed over time. That's kind of an annoying thing because I really love consistency, and whenever I'm looking at my artwork, I'm like, yep, that's it. That's
Yeah,
my
but
artistic
I know,
identity.
but if you're gonna get better and you want to get better, it'd be worse. I mean, your art could stay the same and you're gonna get better at some aspect of it. I think
Mm,
that it's recognizable. I definitely know your work from, when I've seen it in early times. You have the same characteristics of style, and the exaggerations you make are your exaggerations, and that's all great. But obviously you're getting better at every
thanks, man.
aspect of what you do, and that's what we all got to do. But all these layouts look fantastic.
Mm,
That's a question I got for you, for something that hopefully would
mm,
help other artists. Is that when you do feel yourself making different changes and choices in your work,
mm.
did you see it as happening all of a sudden, or was it so gradual? It was just something you noticed looking back.
No, it was pretty sudden, actually.
Really,
Yeah,
like a
yeah, it
light
was
like a light bulb moment, you know?
kind of, but it would almost happen with every piece in a way. Like every piece would change, and maybe it was only obvious to me actually. Like maybe there would be, the onlookers wouldn't really notice, but I,
Gotcha.
as the artist, as the creator, certainly did. And I think it was mostly due to the different influences. Like again, the Alfredo Alcala stuff. That's why my work looks the way it does right now, because I started looking at the amazing mastery of rendering in those pieces.
Yeah, I'm gonna check
And
those out.
it sometimes you interpret those influences in very interesting ways,
Right.
and it has a strange effect. Like for me, it helped me to loosen up a little bit, you know, to realize, oh, even though these lines look really neat, they're imperfect. And part of the charm within the work is the imperfection of it. Like
Yeah.
if we look at you know, Julius has been a massive inspiration to me as well, honestly. But if we zoom in on his work, you can see that, you know, these render lines and stuff are actually pretty rough.
Right.
That's nowhere near as clean as I would make it, but I envy him for that. Like, I want my work to look like this, you know, because my work looks kind of too clean cut sometimes. So it
Right.
amazes me that you can get something that looks so awesome, so pro,
Like that.
and
Yeah.
beautiful. But
Well, see, and I think that's where he's probably got a really good eye and he knows to judge it from that distance, to look at it small, to that a lot of times
mm,
we're getting in so close and so tight. This is one of the drawbacks to working digital is that you have to tell yourself not to zoom in. And it's
yeah,
so hard not to want to do that. So, no, I'll zoom in on faces for sure and stuff like that. But you got to realize that it's going to get reduced and you're going to be looking at it from here. And then you ever hear the average amount of time a comic is, the pages are looked at? It's like it was like 3 seconds or something of where they're looking at, read through it, right? They look at the art for about, maybe it was 7 seconds, but they look at it for like 7 seconds and they go, phew, phew.
yeah,
You know how heartbreaking that is? Like you're on this page for like 10, 20 hours, whatever, and this kid's going 7 seconds.
yeah,
So it's meant to be viewed at a quick glance. And don't get me wrong, there's certain panels we go back and we just stare at them. The work of Todd McFarlane, Mark Sylvester,
mm,
David, we're like just in awe and like studying it. So there's those panels, obviously. But yeah, we have to really like pull back and look at it from a distance and get that information there. It's funny when you zoomed up on that, I did not expect it to look that rough. Like not rough, I don't want
right,
to say that. Right there, from my distance to the screen, it looks gorgeous. All pulls together. So yeah,
yeah,
he's got that eye for putting that detail in there with some energetic loose lines, we'll say, but it pulls together and bam, just
yeah.
looks stunning.
It's got energy to it, and
It really does.
it's got real grounding. And yeah, man, it's funny how you talk about how fast the reader will go through a comic book and glance at the art. That's very, very true. I
Yeah.
think though it's the impact of the entire comic book, not just the individual pages. Because when I watch a really good movie that I love, that I rewatch over and over again,
Right, right,
I don't pause on the scene and look at the scene for an extended period of time.
right.
I experience it as a whole, and that's what makes it amazing. And
Yeah.
so every little detail, even though it won't be noticed, even though it won't be noticed consciously at least,
Hmm.
it still counts in a big way as something which is memorable, that stands the test of time. It's something that helps you to leave a legacy. And so when I go back and I look at John Buscema's work and Alfredo Akala as an example, or I look at the old Mark Silvestri books that he worked on as another example, it's like, you know, even though some of those artists are passed away now, what remains till this day is their beautiful artwork.
Oh
It's
yeah.
immortalized, essentially. It immortalizes them.
Yeah.
And it could have very easily been something which was forgotten about, which is just thrown away, which wasn't ever seeked out again. But instead, it's something that left an impact on people. They talked about it, and it's discoverable now in many different ways. John Buscema, you'll never forget his name because of
Right.
the amazing works and groundbreaking work that he did. And so that's how I think about my own stuff. It's like, man, I know I got a limited amount of time here. So what I want to do is create stuff that leaves a lasting impact on
Yeah.
people.
No, and
And
that's the beauty of art. It does do that. Comics are something that yeah, it leaves a lasting impression, like you're saying. And if it's a great story, I mean, the sky's the limit. There's all kinds of things that it could become, and how many, it's just a really neat thing. And we're in a very fortunate time where comics are getting all this great attention that back in the day, I mean, when I was younger, people were straight up telling me like, dude, don't be a comic artist. You're not going to make a living. You need to go get a real job. And
Hmm.
luckily, I just didn't. I didn't. Well, I believed him for some time because I started a business, but I always worked for myself. But I got, I let that fear get in me, and I did the business route. Start a business, do this stuff. I should have just went for comics. But then later on, I jumped back in. Now that's all I do. I draw. I mean, yeah, I teach courses and all this and that, but I'm doing comics and comic art every day. And like, it wasn't, well, it was hard. Don't get me wrong. It was hard to do it, but it wasn't as hard as people made it out to sound when I was younger. You know what I mean? Like they were
Yeah.
like, you need to go to college, you need to get this degree and do something, or you need to, in my area, it was everybody got a job in the shop, so get a
Yeah.
job in the shop. That's where everybody makes their money. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's just not the case anymore. I mean, I tell people all the time, young artists, like, sky's the limit for you if you
Mm.
truly are going to chase the dream. You can't just be like, yeah, I'm just going to draw a little bit. I'm going to draw for 2 hours a day and something cool will happen. You might get lucky, but you're going to have a lot better chance if you're drawing about 12, 14 hours a day.
Yeah, and look, that's no joke, man. That actually is a freaking long time
Yeah.
to focus on something. So, this is the art form of champions. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you've got to really be in it to win it.
Right.
And man, if you're not driven, there's no way that you're going to be able to put in that level of work. Not to discourage anyone, but if I've got to convince you, I mean that's a problem to begin with. I think like
Exactly.
you should just be compelled to do it if it's going to work out.
Yeah. Good point.
There's definitely easier things you could do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know
Yeah.
why
And
we
I mean,
punish ourselves, Rob. I don't
right. No,
know.
I mean, because it's cool. I mean, look at that. It's cool to tell a story. Like, like that's my thing is I realized I started to get burned out on pinups, but then I also haven't been doing as much storytelling as I need to. And that's why I'm trying to refine my path there. But I was doing pinups so much that I'm like, like, oh, it's fun. Don't get me wrong. I love doing pinups. Easy to find reference, easy to get motivated with characters that you already know and love. It's easier. But I'm like, man, that's not telling a story though. And yeah, you can go to a gallery and see some pinups I did. That's cool and all, but I want to tell a story with my art. That's what I got into it for. And so that's why I love seeing stuff like this. It actually motivates me, and it should anybody
Cool.
watching this. Like that's what you need to do. Like one thing I noticed that when I drew the 4 books for Aerial and Assault back in the day, I did 2 and then I redid the 2 because my style had changed so much. I
Nice.
realized that by the time I got done with those 2 books, man, it made me such a better artist because I had to
Oh
draw
yeah.
all these different angles, things that when you're doing pinups, what do? Everybody's coming out the screen looking tough, and it's the same thing over and over, a little bit different angle. You're trying to make
Yeah.
it dramatic, but this is a whole nother ballgame. When you're sitting there drawing low camera angles, different perspectives, different sceneries, establishing shots, uh,
Mhm.
it's a whole nother ballgame, and it teaches you so much more. And the only way you get your chops is to sit down and do it.
Yeah, totally, man. And again, I'm really fortunate that this stuff kind of comes to be naturally, which is amazing. Like I don't know what I would have had to have done to actually try to consciously learn it, but I think it's just it plays out in my head. I see it as a movie, and I project it down onto the page the way I see it. But it's also actively trying to make your shots interesting. I think you've got to do that as well because there's definitely times where I'll lay out a panel and be like, you know what? That's actually not quite working. It doesn't have the impact I'm looking for. And some
Right.
pages are much tougher than others.
Oh
Some
yeah.
pages just require a lot of redoing. And that's why it's important to actually keep it this rough in the beginning. But
Well, and be careful. And I'm not trying to discourage you or anybody else watching this, but be careful, Clayton, because I used to be like that too. And then it got harder. I don't know what
yeah.
happened. I think I fell and bumped my head or something. But be careful. It's not,
Mm.
you have those little hills too. Like all of a sudden it's
Mhm.
like, man, I'm not drawing as fast. I'm not drawing as good. You'll snap
Totally.
if that happens to you. Hopefully it doesn't.
Oh, it
But
does.
but
It does.
you'll snap out of it. I'm just telling viewers too, like you'll snap out of it because there's times when, man, like I remember like points when I was drawing and I just everything just flew out on the page, and then I don't know if it's burnout or different things. You got to reset the gears a little bit, charge the batteries, but maybe get re-inspired. But yeah, so just be aware. But if you're in it for the long game and you love what you do, you're just going to keep on taking in good information. And now there's like all these great tutorials by, like we were talking earlier, how back in the day it was hard to get your hands on these really great tutorials and courses. And now there's all this fantastic content out there by a lot of great instructors. So I find myself like when I'm really struggling with that part, I'll go. It's almost like I find where I was at in the kid in me. What did I do back then? I started opening up comics and drawing from the books. And now I go to some courses and look at the content. How to draw comics.net. Tons of great courses. You can go there, bam, get something that inspires you from one of the artists that you like, that you identify with, and yeah, it really helps. I'm also, I really shouldn't plug this, but I'm also on Skillshare, but you're on there too. So Clayton's Clayton's got some good stuff on Skillshare as well as Ed and David. So check their stuff out as well. But what's so great about that is you pay that yearly fee, and then it's like, I'm not drawing so good. Let me trace Clayton's stuff. No, not trace it, but I'll look at Clayton's stuff. Oh, there's a good layout, But it's neat having all that at our fingertips. You know what I mean?
Oh, hell yeah. Man, honestly, it's just really great to be here to talk with all of you wonderful people out there, Rob's audience. It's great because catching up with you today, I've said it before, but it feels like a long time coming, and I wish it happened more often because we actually collaborate together a lot in other ways. And
right.
I know that both of us feel that same level of fulfillment when it comes to giving back to you, the viewer, and being able to pass on all the things we've learned to you to make the journey a little bit easier, mostly so to help you avoid a lot of the mistakes that we came across along the way, and again, just to make it smooth sailing, or help to make it as smooth sailing as possible for you. So it's hopefully you've gotten a lot out of today's interview. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Definitely check out Cozo, Descent into Madness, the debut comic book title from the Barton Bros. And howtodrawcomics.net. That, like, 90% of the stuff that you're going to see on there is free. And my goal when I decided to create it was to make it the epitome, the very best comic art resource out there for aspiring artists, just like yourself, just like me. I'm still an aspiring artist.
Me too.
And I learned a lot from Joe Catapano, the dude who wrote up the tutorials on how to draw comics as well when he started working on them for the site. So definitely check those out. And of course, take care of yourself. Keep practicing. Keep working hard. And you'll get there 100%. Always.
Good job, Clayton. Yeah, and check out, if you're on Facebook, who's not on Facebook, right? Check out the Facebook group. And again, it's a great place to share your work. Take your feelings off to the side, a little bit. Always try to separate your emotions from your art, especially when you go to share it. Get all this intensity when you create it, but then separate that. This is how you get better. Share it. Let somebody pick it apart. Sometimes they're going to say it really nice, sometimes not so nice, but it's how you use that information that makes you better. It helps you to start seeing your own flaws in your own work and improve. And that is a big part of your growth, but not everybody can do that. And it's not that easy because, again, you have to separate the way that you feel about your art with, what's the hard truth of it. I love the Facebook group for that. And not only that, just getting inspired by everybody's work that they share, So the website, the Facebook group, make sure to check it out. Support Clayton's book and follow his YouTube as well. He's on my featured channels list. And thanks very much, Clayton, for participating today and being our guest. And we'll have you back soon.
No worries, man. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it.